hopped up on NyQuil. I go, I don't think I should talk to my attorney with the... Hi.
It's 7:30.
I was hopped up on NyQuil. All right. It's not... No, now it is. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the Geneva Area City School Board to order. Excuse me. I apologize ahead of time for my voice and cough and all that. Ms. McDermott, can we have the attendance, please? Roll call.
Sure. Ms. Cybulski. Mrs. Krieg. Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Present.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Present.
And Mr. Pierson.
Here.
Are we in compliance, Madam Treasurer?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business, excuse me, and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting, as indicated on the agenda. If you are able and willing, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Any correspondence, Mr. Riley?
None at this time from my end.
Ms. McDermott?
None on my end.
Anybody else? Correspondence? Thank you. I'd like a motion to waive the reading and approval of the minutes. Excuse me.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion about that? Roll call?
Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg.
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
And Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Treasurer's financial report. Do you have anything for us, Shelley?
Just a quick update. You have the information that was sent out to you. I did put it in the Google Share folder. I just want to let you know that I am working with Mr. Riley on getting the rest of the ESSER funds allocated. September 2nd is the last day that we can adjust the budget for it. All the remaining funds need to be appropriated by the end of September to make sure they're fully expended by our absolute deadline of December 2nd. So we've met once, and we are kind of redefining everything and making sure everything is in the right sections we need it to be.
Perfect. Questions or comments about what you sent us?
Make a motion to approve.
Yep. Is that your motion, Jamie?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Approval of invoices.
Whoop, we need to take roll call.
Oh, excuse me. Roll
Mrs.
call.
Krieg.
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Now approval of invoices. I never remember this one. Do we have to do a motion? And all
Yes,
that?
we do.
I need a motion to approve the invoices, please.
Moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Informational items. Also attached by Ms. McDermott, right?
Correct, and that is up to date. As the information is kind of rolling off, I will be starting a new bank account at Star, which will have the investments there.
Why are we starting a new bank account?
Because I am not fluent like Mr. Lilly was in investing the money into, doing the research
Oh.
on that portion where he knew.
So having a banker to help do that
So,
work.
yes, and then eventually there's also another banker, Red Tree, that we could look into to handle the larger investments we may come to. Star is a bank account that's used by schools, with a nice interest rate, which is just a savings account. So, we will get a good return on our money right there.
Perfect.
And it's easy enough to move it right into our checking accounts when it's needed.
Okay.
So,
Any questions or discussion about that? Can I get a motion to?
Nope, there's no motion.
Never mind.
Yep.
Legislative report, please, Mr. Pierson.
So legislative report, we have a lot of pending legislation. Right now, all I can say is in Franklin County, we saw the reaffirmation of House Bill 68. It has, at least to my knowledge, no effect on our school. It has to do with gender identity in collegiate sports, which doesn't affect our district at all. So, in that era, there was no need to really write a report. If it changes, I will send that over to Amy as well as Mr. Riley. We can get that up on the website.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Ortiz, do you have a ATEC report?
We did meet on Monday. The first day back for the high school students was today. The bargaining agreement has been renewed for the next 3 years. So we're off to a good start.
Good, thank you. Report of the substitute superintendent.
Just a few items before I go through the items that are on the agenda there, just to keep our community updated. We did have, as well as the Board of Education, obviously, we did have our Eagle Bash last week, August 15th. We believe we had over 700 people in attendance. It was very well received by the community, very positive. More than 30 clubs, organizations, businesses. We had carnival activities, rock wall inflatables, haircuts. Went very well. I think they said they had about 60 haircuts they gave that
Wow,
evening, so that's
really?
pretty good. Vision and hearing checks, they had a good dozen on that, and half a dozen or so immunizations. So everybody was very well pleased with it, so I appreciate everybody's efforts as we kind of got that moving through. One topic that was going into the summer months, just to clarify, we were able to secure 2 additional nurses for our district offered through the ESC. We now have 4 RNs and 1 LPN, so 5 nurses to service each building. They were identified as health aides by the ESC, so we're working through the logistics of making sure that we're covering all the responsibilities with our district nurses and those nurses. But, and I'm confident that'll work out. It'll be good now that we have 5 health professionals covering 5 buildings as opposed to our 3 nurses moving across the district. So thanks to the ESC for handling that. We did send out a constant contact today about the YMC Latchkey program as a reminder to our families. It runs every weekday from 7 a.m. until the start of the school day and after school hours until 6 p.m. $55 per week for under 10 hours a week, $65 a week for 10 to 25 hours a week, and $75 a week for 25 hours or more per week. We do provide transportation, although it is housed only at Austenburg based on the information provided by the YMCA and the information they've gathered and tracked and the such. We do provide transportation to all of our elementary schools for our families. So just another opportunity for our families to take advantage of the YMCA. Final Forms continues to move along. We have 53% of our student body and families already finished up. We have 238 unsigned, pretty much because the students haven't gone in and filled out their documents, but the parents have. So going into the school year, we're at almost 65% completion rate, which is far higher than
Wow.
we were probably, I don't know, maybe by October of last year. So we're well ahead of the game. And we'll
It's
keep
easily double what we start the year with usually, right?
Yeah, we'll easily, and the building principals are gonna do a great job. They'll keep the numbers going up, so they'll keep improving, but very pleased with that whole transition. Mr. Olaf from Transportation will be sending out bus routes to families probably tomorrow, if not by Friday at the latest. He's been working through kind of renumbering the systems a little bit to make it a little easier for families. And this is his first time truly going through that process kind of on his own, so he wants to make sure that it's absolutely right before he puts it out to the public. So working our way through that one. It should, like I said, should be out in a day or 2 here. We did add a secretary position to the Transportation and the Building Systems departments, so that should definitely help out with communication to our families in the coming weeks, especially with the opening of school coming up. I am just giving the report tonight. Usually we have the administrative team, but for those in the community, just so they know, September and May, we will have reports from all building administrators. And then the remaining months, at least 1 elementary and 1 secondary principal will be providing reports specifically on their building while also looping in some of the information from some of the other schools. So we're going to try and kind of spread the wealth a little bit along the way and still make sure we're communicating effectively. I know that Lauren's probably going to talk a little bit about the library situation coming up a little bit here, but they do have a construction project that's going on. Typically, the middle school sends on an average 75 students a day over to the middle school at the end. With all the construction that's going on, they can only accommodate 50. So what they're doing moving forward is they have a couple of programs each day where there'll be 12 seats each, a homework and a social area which will have 26 seats. So the students in K through 8 who would like to go to the library during the hours of 2 to 4 They have to register for a library program or be accompanied by a supervising adult during those time. Families will need to register their students for specific program dates, including the uses of the staff monitor group study space with registration available up to 30 days in advance via their event calendar. I do know they spoke on Tuesday night at the middle school and kind of started relaying the word, and I'm sure they're going to the elementaries and they'll keep getting the word out on that end. Wonderful construction project, nearly doubling the size of the library over the span of the next 8 or 9 months. But obviously with construction comes the hardship that the students won't be able to all go over there at the end. But I do know they met with Mr. Poland and Mrs. Carnett, and they're working through the process of trying to kind of come up with some unique ideas to make sure that all those students can kind of get some opportunities there.
Mr. Riley, what about on our end? What happens when there are 40 students milling around after school that can't get in the library? Do we have any?
That's hence why Mr. Poland and Mrs. Carnett, they're trying to work through a couple of ideas to try to
Okay.
figure it out. And they did meet with the library folks the other day and throwing out a couple ideas. I don't know if anything's stuck yet, but they'll get it figured out.
All right.
Just some key updates. Waiver Day with the staff tomorrow. Osterberg's open house, 4:30 tomorrow. Cork open house, 5 o'clock. The teacher work day is the 23rd, and it's also GPS Elementary open house and the first home football game of the year. 26th, school starts and kindergartners start on the 28th. So we're ready to open up the school. The custodians and everybody has done just a great job getting the housekeepers, getting the buildings ready to go. And Mrs. Horvath, especially with all their help with final forms this summer. It's just been phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to having a positive start to the school year, and I can't wait to see everybody back. Moving on to my official, report that's on the agenda here. The substitute superintendent recommends approval of the attached service agreement between the Educational Service Center of the Western Reserve and the Geneva Area City School District for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
The substitute superintendent recommends approval of the enclosed service agreement with Access for the 24-25 school year.
Moved.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Excuse me, yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. McDermott, would you like to take the next one, or would you like me to read it?
You are welcome to read it if you would like.
Sure, I'll help you out.
I would
The
appreciate
treasurer
that.
recommends approval of a transfer from the general fund to the lunchroom in the amount of $5,690.03 to clear quote-unquote bad debt from the 2023-24 school year as per Board Policy 8500 and federal and state guidelines.
Guidelines? It's not in the ORC?
Moved.
Second. And for discussion, there are guidelines for section 8500 that are tied to the ORC. They're in the administrative contracts. So it's layers to go through, but for the laws that govern how public school officials and administrators need to run, what I believe Mrs. McDermott is showing us is we are following our own laws, plus the state obviously guides us to pay that off. And if I'm not mistaken, that's a pretty low amount for bad debt. And we've had a host of private contributions from citizens. I know the Wrights had cleared a few thousand, and some of our local businesses had donated too. So thank you guys very much for that, because that 5,000 is far, far lower than I remember in 2021 seeing.
Mr. King, you have a?
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Yes, we will not allow negative balances for a la carte, so we will not have a write-off next year.
Okay, perfect. Yes, and thank Mrs. Babick for that. So we had a motion and a second, right?
Yep.
Any more discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
The substitute superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 23-24 contract year.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Krieg.
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
And Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The substitute superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 24-25 contract year.
So moved.
Second.
Yes, hold on. I know.
Goes all the way
Where
down.
is it?
Pages 2 and 3, pretty much exclusively.
Got it. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now we are at public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to comment or question us, please come to the mic. State your name and your address for the record. Everyone gets 5 minutes for a total of 30 minutes in the segment. Do we have anyone who wants to step up to the mic and share? Is this your unofficial presentation, ma'am?
It is indeed. So I'm here in my professional capacity as the managing librarian for the Geneva Public Library, directly across the street from the middle school, 860 Sherman Street, Geneva, Ohio. I have been really, really thankful for Mr. Riley and his education team helping us to get the message out about the really big update that we have with respect to the after-school programming that we do every single year over at the Geneva Library. We are under construction. That means that certain areas of our building right now, where they tie into that massive, amazing new addition that we are building, it means that we have certain areas that we just cannot access. And that means that, unfortunately, with that reduced space, there are reduced numbers of students that we're able to accommodate with those after-school programs this year. We are expecting that construction project is going to be completed out by summer of this coming year, 2025. But for this school year, the most important thing is that we do only have 50 seats available for students who are going to be coming over across the street from the middle school or from the high school. We are requiring that all students who are going to be participating or coming to visit at the library after school between the hours of about 2 and 4 p.m., we are requiring that they be registered in. It's a mandatory registration so that we know that we have the appropriate, safe space that people can enjoy. It's going to be safe for us to monitor with that smaller space. Students who are not registered in to one of those spaces, we do require that they have an adult who is able to supervise, whoever that responsible adult would be. Again, just helping us to keep an eye on things. I have an active construction site. We are dealing with that reduced space. We will continue to offer 2 programs every single day after school. We will also keep open the teen area that we have, 26 seats in the teen area, 12 seats each in programs. That's where we're coming up with our 50. Again, I appreciate all of the assistance that Mr. Riley's staff has been able to offer with helping to spread that message out to families and students in the school district. I would be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have about that process. And ultimately, I really look forward to offering that amazing space upon completion. Massive meeting room available to the public, makerspace that we'll have available for students and community members, and that great big 3,000 square foot teen center that we are building on. So that's going to be really, really great news for next year. So thank you.
How many students do you estimate last year that we had go to the library after school?
I know that our average every day, our average was 75 students per day. I had days where the low number might have been 45, 46. I know I had a peak census. There was a single day where I had 129. That was a day that there was some issues with busing. So we had quite a few students who were visiting the library that day, waiting on rides for pickups. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is the online system ready to go? Like, could they
It is.
register as early as Monday?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Registration is currently open and will be maintained with a window of registration open up to 30 days in advance of individual program dates. Every single day is a fresh opportunity for students and families to register in. if you register on a Monday, it doesn't mean that you're registered every single Monday for the rest of the school year. Every day is, an equal opportunity for other families, other students to take advantage of that space. But yes, the website is open. Families can register their students directly through acdl.info. They are welcome to call. We will register right over the phone into any available space that we have. We also encourage them to come on over. We're happy to register right at the front desk too.
Perfect, Lauren, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other
And we
questions?
can't make the children compete for seats by challenging Jim McClure to a Fallout speed run. Is that off the table?
I think Jim might win.
I don't know, we
I'm
have some
hoping.
fast kids.
McClure has no mercy, you guys.
He does
no
have
mercy.
mercy.
No mercy.
Thanks for all you do.
Yeah, thank you.
And I really appreciated the ladies that were at the middle school last night. Was that last night? Tuesday night. They had such great information. They were so good with the parents and talked to me even, so thank you. Okay, any other public comments? All right, moving on to board member reports. I have a couple of things. Mrs. Markajon, are we ready to put students on the board? Are we going to elect them to our, council or whatever you're doing? Are you ready to do that? Start that process?
I'm not sure what that process looks like, but
Okay,
I'm very excited to help.
okay. Let's figure that out, okay? Let's get together and figure out how we can have a seat on the board for two, right? We want a senior and a junior. All right, I'll get with you. Thanks, Ann.
I thought we would have one from each grade level, a representative from each grade level.
Freshman and sophomore? We want 4 students on the board?
Sure.
There's 5 of us.
I just think I think we have I think we should write up some samples and get some ideas of how
Okay.
other people are doing it, and
All right.
then move forward
Let's
with
do
it.
that.
I don't think we're quite ready to
All right,
decide
let's do that then.
today.
Yeah, I don't want to decide anything today. I was
Yeah.
just seeing if we're rolling toward that.
It may even be
When-
nice to reach out to Anthony Gomez from
Cuyahoga
Chagrin.
Falls.
Oh, Cuyahoga Falls, sorry, excuse my, yeah, absolutely, from, and I think that maybe even just reaching out to him and picking his brain and seeing how they do it a little bit, and then we can twist it, to what we think works for our students the best.
When do we do elections? Yeah.
It's usually between the second and third week.
Of school.
We try student council, which is an unrecognized group that runs homecoming. We start the year with that, and then steering committee elections occur branch off that.
Okay. Think we have time to get it on there? Do you think we have time to get it organized by then?
Oh, I think
Because if we miss the elections, then we have to wait till next school year. Correct?
we can reach out.
That's assuming that you're going to make your class officer be your representative.
I think, I don't know.
We
Yeah,
can
right,
break,
don't
we
know
can
what
break
that
off from that.
looks like yet. Yeah.
And you know who probably has the most training here would be Mrs. Ortiz to ask this question.
Oh.
Because I know that with the workshops that you guys have attended, which were more in-depth than the ones that I've been to so far, they've mentioned this a few times, so it might be even better to pick some of your guys' contacts' name over, and just try to get a bigger pool, because like what you had said, just because that is what the students elect, there still could be a separate, board.
Yeah.
And I use that term loosely, whatever that organization is, and the election process or selection could be completely different.
Oh.
As long as it's, fair and it represents what you guys think is best, then, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's keep talking about that. Thank you. OSPA is giving us an award. The Geneva Area City Schools, is it the board or the schools? And the high school. And they would like the purple, I'm sorry, Dave, what is it called?
Purple Star designation.
Purple Star designation. So they're having a dinner, and I would like to get a preliminary number so that I can tell them if we're coming. I think it would be great if we would all try to join them. So it is, I'm sorry, I had it right here.
It's October,
Yeah, I don't,
the 5th is stuck in my head, but
I'm sorry, I don't have the date. Maybe I'll table it and get back to y'all. It's October something, it's an evening in Youngstown, like 5 o'clock, networking starts or whatever, and then dinner and awards. So, let me know if you wanna go, I'll look up the date, I'll let you know, and we'll go from there. so I
October
can
2nd.
Give them a count. October 2nd, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Is that what you said, Beth?
no, I said the 5th, but I was just
No.
pulling it out of my.
It's October 2nd
That's my
at,
brain.
There it is.
in Wadsworth.
Galaxy Restaurant in Wadsworth.
Yep.
5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And so, let me know if you want to or can go. I had the pleasure of going to the middle school orientation last night, and how fun that is, and the kids looking terrified, the incoming 6th graders, looking like a deer in the headlights, right? And their parents going, it's okay, or going, suck it up, like whatever they're doing. And it was really nice. I had some nice conversations with the librarians and with some of the teachers. And I want to thank Mr. Poland for taking a minute to talk to me, and Mr. Riley was there also. So I just wanted to share that, and that was a good time had by all. That's all I have. Does anybody else have anything?
I got to attend 7th and 8th grade orientation tonight. And
Nice.
it was quite wonderful. And then also, the Great Bet pageant is coming up, and the way the calendar falls this year, our meeting conflicts with one of their rehearsal nights.
Oh.
So I was hoping we could relocate our meeting either to the middle school if it's available, or a larger classroom for our September board meeting.
I've confirmed with Mr. Poland that we can use the middle school cafeteria that evening.
So if that's okay with everybody, I'd like to give the Great Bets the stage so that they can rehearse, and, because we don't need the stage
We
in
do not.
September.
No, not at all. No, that's
That's
good.
the 18th,
Yeah, the September meeting.
so we're moving to the middle school. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, thanks for having eyes on that.
Do we have to vote on that or anything? No,
Okay,
right?
all right.
You just go.
It'll
Yeah.
just be noticed that
So
the
we'll notice that
September
everybody,
meeting.
so for
Yep.
everyone here, September 18th meeting, 7:30 still, but instead of the high school here, we'll do the middle school.
Thank you.
All right,
Well, I had the pleasure of attending the freshman orientation.
nice.
And great job, Mr. King and staff, everything, Mrs. DeBacker. I know it's a lot of work to get school kicked off, and it was very appreciated. Yeah, deer in the headlights at the high school, too.
Right, freshman, oh my
A lot of
gosh.
parents, too. Like, you could just see the
Right.
fear on everybody's face. But they're all going to be fine, I told them.
Yeah, right. This too shall pass.
Yeah, but great job. I also want to do a shout out to anyone involved in the Eagle Bash. That was a wonderful, amazing community event. Not knowing how it was going to go the first year, I thought it was well done. I did not notice any hiccups. There may have been some in the background, but if there were, they were well covered. So great job with that. And then I just want to say to everyone, good luck on a great year. I think it's going to be fantastic, and go Eagles.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I have one more thing I meant to mention for everybody, that when we're all in one spot. I will be out of the country August 30th to September 12th. So if I don't answer emails or texts or whatever, it's because I'm on vacay. Anybody else have anything?
I wanted to say that I did not attend any orientations, but I've moved a couple of kids into college at various parts of the state, but also deer in the headlight looks. It was a little painful, a little stressful, but also Eagle Bash, it was awesome. I thought it really went well. It was well attended. I wanted to say that the buildings look really nice. I've driven around and everything is mowed and the floors look so beautiful, and the teacher in me always likes to look at all those little things. Like, I know how hard they work on stripping the floors and waxing them and all the time it takes, and I always think about that when I get to my classroom and I start to drag something, and I'm like, just pick it up, just pick it up, just pick it up. But everything looks so beautiful, and I really appreciate our custodial staff, because I know how hard they work to keep up with all of those things. And I know Mr. Ola's been really working hard with transportation, and that is a really heavy lift, and it does not go unnoticed or unseen, so very, very much appreciated. I know that there was some talk, I got a couple emails about the band being moved, and I know that that's pretty much it, they've moved them, and I'm hopeful that it's a nice move. They're closer to where the action of the football game is now, so I'm hopeful to see what that's gonna be like on Friday night. Hopefully it's awesome and like everybody's close together and building that camaraderie. I think it's gonna be great, so I'm kind of excited to see what that's all about. And I'm trying to think what else. Band, custodian. Oh, I did a story time this month at the pavilion, the Rotary Pavilion. This month was, I got the idea from the district that I teach in. One of our board members, she does this throughout the summer. and it's for everybody, but I decided to try it up here in August for incoming kindergartners. And the Winterfest court came and helped us out, and it was really sweet, and we had a good time. And we read the Kissing Hand, and we did a craft with it, and we had a snack, and it was really fun, and I enjoyed it, but I'm a kindergarten teacher, so that's kind of my jam. So I'm planning, I think I'm gonna do another one in September, and it's probably gonna be something to do with the Grape Jamboree, and I was thinking about maybe asking some grapettes to join us for that one, so I'm gonna try to tie something in with that. I'm not quite sure yet, and I think I'm gonna see if I can utilize the middle school, and because I can't count on the weather now, like I don't wanna blow away or rain away or whatever's gonna happen, so I'm gonna see what we can do and try to incorporate other grades that are just not for kindergarten, but we'll see what I can come up with, and I will push it out. It's not necessarily board related, I just thought it was a great way to, read to kids and do a craft and an activity. It will be open to everyone, but it was fun and we enjoyed it, and it was super sweet, so. But yeah, it was a good month, and I hope everybody has a great school year, and here we go.
Here we go.
Go
Let's do
Eagles.
this. Go Eagles. Anybody else?
While we're in session, I just wanted to go over a few things. I was at no orientation. I was helping my 16-month-old daughter stay oriented from falling down because she has a fond habit of walking around the house letting me know what kind of sounds a chicken, a cat, and a cow can make, which usually leads to her screaming moo so hard she falls over. But I did get to vicariously live through everyone's posts yesterday, which really bummed me out. I think that summer bash was amazing. I couldn't believe how many people were there. I mean, social media, text messages, everyone I reached out to, I was like, hey, here's this mundane thing, how are you? They're like, oh, I'm gonna be heading down there pretty shortly. So that was pretty impressive. I like the numbers Mr. Riley gave me, 60 haircuts, almost 60 haircuts, that's insane. And that's a huge, huge stressor
And
when you live in a small town and you're trying to get 750 kids scheduled in that 2-week period. So thank you for putting that together.
And shout out to Dakota and Rachel Hutchinson, those GHS alumni, and
Yep.
Becky Dahl. They donated their time and did all those haircuts for free. So shout out to them. And they didn't want anything for it, but they did. It was very short notice and did a great job. So thank you to them as well.
And yeah, absolutely. I wanted to go on to, I really appreciate the way that the schools have been handling communication. That's at all levels of administrative, certified, teaching staff. I've heard nothing from people that used to basically hurl expletives at me pretty regularly about how good the communication is, and I've gotten several very positive reports, Ms. McDermott, about interactions with you specifically, and that alleviates a lot of anxiety, and I really appreciate that. And then lastly, I just wanted to, while we're in session and we're here with the public, I have been looking at enrollment and testing numbers, and one of the things that I'm going to queue up that we're going to talk about, usually these conversations occur inside of an executive session because we can't say student names or talk about placement of careers, is from the low numbers of enrollment at Austinburg and from what I consider to be an over-encumbered unit at GPS, I believe I will eventually recommend that we look at an analysis for potential redistricting, things to alleviate busing issues, things to alleviate workload issues, as well as help unify and make a more cohesive aspect of going to school and receiving the same education, whether it's Cork or it's GPS or it's Austinburg. I think we are probably a little bit further past where we want to be when we're looking at a redistricting. And I know that giving Mr. Riley an additional task is something that he really wants to do, right away. So there is no rush on this. I'm just simply going to be queuing the conversation to start while we have Mr. Donatone here, while we have Mr. Riley here. And then once we can build a framework with all the moving pieces in place, I would, anticipate if the board finds it necessary to do so, if we, once we look at it, or if we decide that we don't want to do that. In either case, we can present that to the public and get their thoughts on it. So just before I presented that kind of in the dark, I wanted people to have that in the public. Again, so if it's a terrible idea, you can write me an email and let me know. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Pierson. That's on my radar too, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anything else? We are having executive session and we are coming back for 2 other agenda items. And that is the topic of our discussion. As in, the board will hold an executive session to consider the appointment, employment, discipline, or compensation of a public employee, the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, and conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent court action. Can I get a motion, please?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes. Hopefully we'll be short-winded. Talking over. I'm just kidding.
I don't have too much today. You guys are
Talking to
in luck.
myself. I just don't remember things like. All right.
That's like gold.
Okay, we are returning from executive session at whatever time it is. Thank you all for waiting. 9:03 PM. Moving on. On the agenda. I would like to make a motion that the board approve the enclosed resolution, a resolution adopting a settlement agreement and release with Dr. Terry Rena Treehorn. And Mrs. McDermott is going to read us the resolution.
I need a motion and a second first. and then
Motion, second first. So that's my motion, I move.
Second.
Now, discussion, and we're gonna start that discussion with the reading of that resolution.
Okay. This is a resolution adopting an employment settlement agreement and release with Dr. Terry, I'm sorry. Rena Treehorn.
Treehorn.
Whereas the board currently employs Dr. Terry Rena Treehorn as the superintendent. Whereas Dr. Rena Treehorn and the board, in furtherance of their respective interests, have determined to alter their existing employment relationship. Whereas Dr. Rena Treehorn has not been found to have engaged in wrongful or unprofessional conduct. Whereas Ohio Revised Code Section 3313.17 permits the board to enter into contracts and agreements. Whereas the board wishes to authorize and approve the employee settlement agreement and release attached hereto. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the board that, Section 1, the board hereby approves and enters into the attached employment settlement agreement and release in accordance with the terms and conditions set forth in the employment settlement agreement and release, which is attached hereto as Attachment A and incorporated herein fully by reference. Section 2, the treasurer hereby is authorized and directed to execute on behalf of the board the employment settlement and a release with Dr. Rena Treehorn. Section 3, the board authorizes and directs board president, assistant superintendent, and treasurer to carry out any functions or steps necessary to effectuate this employment settlement agreement and release with Dr. Rena Treehorn. Section 4, it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of the board concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this board, and that all deliberations of this board and any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public or in executive sessions permitted by Ohio law. Section 5, this resolution shall be in full force and effective from and immediately upon its adoption.
Thank you. Any other discussion about it? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz? Ortiz.
Mrs. Mortiz.
Mortiz. Motion carried.
Motion carries. Thank you all. Item 10, recommendation that the board approve the enclosed resolution. We are not going to read this whole one. I move that we appoint Mr. David Riley as our interim superintendent.
Second.
Any discussion about it? So we're giving you a new title, if you'll take it, interim,
This will be effective
Effective
as of September
September 1.
1st.
September 1st, this one,
Correct.
okay?
Yes.
Any other discussion about it? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Vote is unanimous.
Anything else for the good of the order? Thank you.
I need a motion.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Steals my thunder. Any discussion about adjourning? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Pearson, Mr. Oh my gosh, it's been a long day.
Mrs.
Mr. Pearson
2024, it's fine. I'm here.
and Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Motion adjourned, meeting adjourned.